Picture this. The sun has set, and the moon is born again. It brings tranquility, peace, and romance. The snow just fell on the land. It's beautiful outside if you look from your window. From the inside of your warm and cozy house. So what could be a better time to talk about indie games? Yep, okay, hello. Hey everyone, I'm Bumble, and welcome to BumblePodcasts. This will be the second podcast. And today we are going to be talking about indie games. Now, indie games is a subject that is a bit of a delicate matter among the gaming community because I seem to be the only person who has the opinion that I have. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people don't share the same opinion, which is fine, but I'm going to talk about my opinion, and I'm going to do it as objectively as possible. Again, I'm not shitting on anyone. I'm not saying some people are bad, some opinions are bad. No, this is wholly my opinion, and I'm going to try to construct it as objectively as possible. But do keep in mind, opinion, not saying that your opinion is wrong. Alright, let's begin. So, let me tell you how this is gonna go down. Right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is my personal history / opinion. This can range from my feelings of it and the experience I've had with indie games, things that I've bought, things that I've seen. Right, it can literally be anything as long as it's like closely connected to me. So this is the least objective because these are my feelings and my memories on the subject, which is fine. But you know, then that's that. Then I'm gonna talk about the good parts. The good parts of indie games, indie developers, anything indie. Basically, I'm gonna talk about what's good about it, what I want to see more of, and you know, things that are just inherently good about the whole subject. Right. Then I'm gonna talk about the bad things about indie games, and I can already tell you that my opinion on indie games is very... It's quite negative, actually. The thing is, I completely understand if you feel one way or another about an indie game, or indie developers. A lot of people like it, a lot of people hate it. Not really, actually. I think more people like it than not, but that's, you know, that's the whole thing. And also, we're going to be talking about indie game developers and indie games, right? So music is not going to be in here, even though I also have something to say about music, but my musical opinion about indie is better than my video game opinion, because I had, you know, different experiences with both of them. Right, so then I'm going to talk about good examples. Right, like good examples of indie games and indie developers. And, of course, I'm going to be talking about the bad examples, the things that I don't like, and the developers I don't like, the games that I don't like, right. Next, we're going to be talking about solutions. So what do I think that could massively help the indie gaming, the whole indie gaming thing? You know, like, well, what could help? What could be, you know, beneficial to the whole indie problem that I have with it? So, again, personal. These are just a couple of solutions that I thought of, right, for the problems that I am experiencing with it. Right, so that's it. And then I'm gonna round it up, and that's gonna be the end. Once again, I'm not timing this, so it's just gonna be casual banter. I'm not gonna try to think about it too hard. It's mostly about me having fun and talking and showing my opinion and the way I feel. If you feel differently about it, be sure to put it in the comments, but if you can't be civil about it, please refrain from doing so, right? So, if you're gonna be one of those people that are like,
this guy doesn't share my opinion, I must witch hunt him, fuck yeah!
Then that's probably a bad idea. Probably. No, that's definitely a bad idea. The fuck am I saying? Oh yeah, just try it out. Maybe I'll react to it, like, in the way that you want me to. No, spoiler alert, I'm not gonna do that. Right. Let's start off with The first subject, the first matter, my personal history / opinion. Right, so I already mentioned that I have a pretty poor experience with indie games. I'm not gonna take that back. I really do have a bad opinion about indie games and indie developers. That's not to say that there are some indie games that I really like, and some things that have gone really well. This is about the bigger spectrum about the indie games that I've seen. Right, so let me tell you a little bit about this. I own a Switch, right? I don't have the money to buy a PS4 on the side or an Xbox One. I don't have a gaming PC. The PC that I work on is only for like editing and drawing and art and that kind of stuff, right? So I don't have a gaming PC on which I can run like high, the really kind of extreme games like Far Cry or whatever, Far Cry is really famous on that it really takes up a lot of your CPU. So I don't have a gaming PC, I don't have a PS4, I don't have an Xbox One, I have a Switch, and I'm really happy about it. But my experience with indie games on the Switch, which is kind of the same on Steam, is most of them suck, right? Most of them suck dick, and there are a couple of them that are lighted out, they're lifted. You lift them from the disgusting, horrible river Styx, and right there is a gold nugget, right? But do you really want to take your hand and reach it down in the river Styx, get the life sucked out of you to grab that one golden nugget, right? That's how I feel about it. So you have to dig through a lot of garbage to get to the actual good games. Games like, Shovel Knight, Undertale. But also the more famous ones like The Witcher 3, Shovel Knight and Undertale are also incredibly famous, right? But The Witcher 3 was received really well because it's one of those more realistic graphics, next-gen games, you know what I mean? While Undertale and Shovel Knight suffer from a problem that I call pixelitis, that I'm gonna talk about later. But, like, Undertale and Shovel Knight work really well with that concept, right? And there are a lot of games that don't. So, the thing is, I have been... A couple of months ago, I was scrolling through the Switch library, and the Switch was like, oh, we added, like, a whole bunch of games, and I was like, wow, Nintendo, that's really fucking cool. Let's take a look at them. And then it's like, those visual... anime novels, anime/manga, and I'm like, alright, I don't care about this. They have a lot of games that could be considered as mobile games, and, not the good ones either. I'm not saying there are a lot of good mobile games, but there are good mobile games, right? I mean, it's rare, but it's there. And, with the phone, it is like, you already take it everywhere. Right? You have it in your pocket at all times because, it's a phone. That's something that's really personal, right? You bring that with you everywhere you go. You put it in your pocket, you carry it around in your purse or whatever, I don't care. Shove it in your butt crack if you don't want to wear any clothes, just anywhere. But you bring it with you everywhere you go, so if you go somewhere and you're bored, you always have a game on your phone. It doesn't have to be good, it just has to be able to kill time. And with the Switch is really like a gaming system that you buy for games, so you can't do that, Nintendo. You really cannot do that. I know that Arlo has been talking about this. He was scared that the Switch library was gonna end up like Steam, and his, nightmarish vision has become reality, in my opinion, because, the Switch now suffers from, it has a lot of software. Basically, you have a lot of games, you can play a lot of things, you can always buy something, but if you're spending less than, say, 30, 40 euros, you're gonna get a shitty game that you wish you'd never bought. So, for instance, I bought Heart and Slash, which is an indie game, right? And I have to say, I looked up some reviews on it, but there weren't many, because it's an indie game, so it's not really famous, which is one of the big problems with it. Like, it doesn't get reviewed, so you can't check if it's a good game or not. But it was critically acclaimed as a pretty good game, right? And it was on Steam before, so I thought like, oh, alright, let's give it a try. I spent 15 euros on that I wish I could get back, but I can't. With Steam you can, within like, I don't know, how many hours is it? That doesn't really matter, but with the Switch you can't do that. If you make a purchase, all purchases are final, right? So I was playing Hard and Slash, and basically the hitboxes are messed up. It kind of plays like Devil May Cry, but it's also a dungeon crawler, but it's also really bad. Things don't connect, and it's either stupidly easy or impossibly hard. And that's not a good thing. If you have a boss battle from which the boss hits you over and over and over, and the weapons that you get are random, and the only health packs that you can get, basically, are having parts that you have on you, recycled, but like you can have a part that you put a lot of effort into and you're like, man, I think health is more important, and you completely demolish that part to get like 1.5 heart out of the 10 hearts that you can have. It feels ridiculous and it's just stupid, so I thought like, man, this is garbage. So I went looking more and more, and it's just, you see these trashy games from which you just look at them and you're like, yeah, this is trash. You know, like Hunting Simulator, something where you get a gun, and I get the appeal because the Switch doesn't really have that many FPS games, right? FPS shooters, and you're gonna make something from which you think like, alright, but you can so clearly see that they're making this just to get a quick buck. And I saw this game, this was like a hunting simulator, and it was literally 35 euros. 35, you can expect quality from that, right? And it was a shitty shooting gallery game. Like, no joke, worse than the shooting gallery mini-game in Ocarina of Time, a game that came out more than, 10 years ago. And you're just gonna make a shitty game for 35 euros. You're not gonna be able to pull that off. And I remember going back to the Switch, and then it was like, oh, don't worry, it's the price has gone down, it's now half price, it's like 17 euros 50 cents. No, it's still shit, mate. Like, I'm not gonna spend money on a game that's already shit. You can lower the price, but that doesn't change the fact that it's a horrible game. That's a poorly engineered game, right? Like, I don't want to jump the gun, and I want to give every game a fair chance, but it's just the screenshots that were made, and it already looks horrible. It's one of those games where everything looks like it's 2D, but it's a 3D first-person shooter. You know what I mean? Like, it all looks like it's on the same... it's on the same level. But it's not. Right? Like, oh, but how far away is the bear? I don't know. It could be 15 kilometers away, or it could be right in front of my nose. It goes to show that it's just a bad game, right? So I have a really fierce opinion and a really fierce history with indie games, but that doesn't mean that I hate indie games or indie developers, right? There are a lot of indie developers that are good, and a lot of people say indie developers are good because of a couple of reasons that I wish to discuss later, but I can already say it now, because you have indie developers that develop games because they think the AAA companies are just, leeches, which is correct, by the way, and they make it because they want to make a fun game, they want to put their own money in it. They're making a game for the people, they're making a game for the gamers, and that's good, that's nice. But the market right now is so oversaturated with people who make shitty games for a quick buck. Right, they're like, alright, okay, yeah, no, I'm an indie game developer, and they use that to create some empathy from you, so that you will buy their game, which is literally nothing. It's just like 3 lines of code, and then it's like, thanks for the 20 euros, dickhead! And that's my problem with it. So I'm saying there are a lot of good indie game developers, and there are a lot of good indie games, definitely, but there are so many bad ones, and like, I don't know if I want to put the effort into digging through all that to get a good game, right? Because, you want to be using your day to do something nice. If you want to have some fun, you want to take a load off, you want to get on your Switch, you want to turn on the game, you want to play the game, and then quit the game, right? Put a few hours into it and then quit the game. It's that easy. And if you're gonna have to turn on the Switch, then search for a game for 3 hours while looking up reviews, then looking at a game, like arguing with yourself whether you should buy it or not, then actually don't buy it, which is just a waste of time at that point. Or you do buy it and you're disappointed, and then it's still a waste of time, but then it's also a waste of money. Right? You don't want to do that. You want to pick up the controller, you want to play the fucking game. It's that easy. Right. Okay, so I'm kind of ranting right now. I'm sorry about that. We're gonna go and get into the good parts. The good parts about indie games and indie developers. Right. So, me, myself, I'm really a person who supports smaller businesses. Like smaller shops and smaller whatevers. Right, if I have a chance to go to a gigantic music store, or I can go to like the local music store that's in my town, I will more often than not choose the local music store in my town, because maybe the instruments are more expensive, but the people are friendlier, it's more homely. I want to support those people because they put their money into it, right? That was their money. Ultimately, even if they got a loan, that's still their money. They just have to pay it back to the bank, right? And it's just, there's something about it. It's really appealing because myself, I would like to, not start a business per se, but for me and for my partner, for instance, I really want her to be able to start her own business, because she has so many talents that you can't really use as an employee, you know what I mean? And so myself, I really support that idea, and I just view all those people like people with dreams, while I look at bigger companies as corporate fat cats who are just smoking cigars and laughing their ass off at the employees that they pay, like, not nearly enough to live, right? So I definitely get the appeal, and I definitely support that. Another thing is, if you are even slightly accommodated with games, you probably know about the things that EA did, Ubisoft, Blizzard, right? All the problems with their games, like World of Warcraft had a lot of fan-made vanilla servers, I think it was. This was a couple of years back, by the way. Were taken away by Blizzard because they just didn't want. They didn't want it, and I don't really get that. Overwatch, which is a game that I recently stopped, not recently, it's like a year and a half ago. I stopped playing Overwatch because the community is toxic, and I play a game ultimately to have fun, and I can't have fun if 5 people on my team are screeching that I should play Mercy because I was playing Ana, but apparently my aim isn't as good as they want it to. So they're just screeching that I should play Mercy or they throw, right? I get that. And Blizzard doesn't nearly do enough about it. They used to really care about their player base. Now they just kind of don't. EA has always been this kind of game company, right? Like, you have the Harry Potter games, for instance. I know this is a stupid example, but I really, really liked the first or second Harry Potter game on the PC. Well, this is mostly nostalgia talking because I haven't played it recently, so I cannot really build up on that, but let's just say that EA right now, with the whole Star Wars Battlefront scam and blah blah blah, and the loot boxes and you can unlock it, but you just have to put more than 3,000 hours into it to get a single character. And I get it, and AAA companies, more often than not, do suck. Of course, there are a couple of good ones. I personally am really mad at Ubisoft, because Rayman was a very, very beloved character of me, which is something that I want to make a podcast about later, by the way, Rayman, because Rayman was the very first game I've ever played, and still, and I'm talking about, like, Rayman 1, and my favorite game was Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc. And there are just so many things about it, but like, Ubisoft right now, as it is not a very good game company. And, of course, one of the biggest, most topical ones is Bethesda. In the previous podcast, I was talking about Skyrim and how it was so really, really good, but I also explicitly said that I don't agree with Bethesda with the recent things they've done. For instance, Fallout 76 was an absolute shit show, and I can't believe they actually let that slip through their fingers, because Bethesda games are known to have bugs. But don't say it just works. You just slap that sticker on there, and now it's Fallout. It just works. You can't do that. You can't possibly do that. You have people sitting in front of you expecting a game, and you give them a buggy mess, and you just say like, hey, it just works. No money back, by the way. All sales are final. It just works. It's lying. You're lying to people's faces, and then you can, of course, go to your liars and talk yourself out of it. Like, oh, I said it just works, but I wasn't referring to everything. No, you can't. You cannot do that. As soon as you're a gaming company, you make games for your fan base, you make games for gamers, right? You gotta really think about what you're saying. You gotta think about what you're doing. You can't just pump a game out there fast for the sake of, money, because yes, you're selling an icon, but you need to sell a game behind that. The game behind that has so much more gravitation to it than the icon, and if the icon is there and you create a shitty game behind it, you're gonna ruin the icon. And they don't understand, because they're making games for money, and indie games are different in that manner. At least certain indie developers are different about that, because they want to make games that people like, and they listen to it because maybe they have a smaller player base, or maybe it's because they're more involved into the games and they're not corporate fat cats. They're just like, oh, you know. And I definitely get that appeal. And if you get money, if you get funded, and you make a great game, you make a great game, right? It's really, really that simple. So I definitely understand why indie games and indie game developers are looked so fondly upon, right? I definitely agree. But now we're gonna get into the bad parts, and this is the spicy part. Like, this is what I've been waiting for. I want to vent about this. I want to, without the negativity, though, right? So, I don't want to spread negativity about indie games, like, indie games are evil, like, I don't want to create a whole hate movement, but I just want to show my opinion about it. Right, so, first of all, top of the list, bad games. Like I previously mentioned, you have a whole list of bad games. Essentially, if you have one good indie game like Shovel Knight, you have 100, maybe more, bad indie games paired with it, right? That's something that I'll come back to later. But the most interesting thing is what I've been saying before, is pixelitis. Pixelitis is the sickness of not having enough money to create visually appealing graphics, so using pixels instead, right? And that's fine. That's fine, because, like I said, graphics, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, graphics are not everything. But if you're gonna make the graphics pixelated solemnly because of the fact that you're either too lazy or you don't have enough money to do it in another way, but you know that the game doesn't work with the pixel aspect of it, because let's face it, Undertale had a pixel aspect, and it worked with it. Shovel Knight had a pixel aspect, and it worked with the idea, with the gameplay, with the story, with everything. But if you're gonna use pixels as an excuse, or like as something to save money on, please don't do that. Like, I get it, right? Okay, it's difficult to use something else than pixels, right? But it's possible, it's definitely possible. And I don't want to say like, oh, The Witcher did it, so you should be able to do so as well. I'm not saying that, but you can create something simpler, or use a simpler concept, right? Don't just throw yourself on pixels because it's easy, you know what I mean? Another problem next to pixelitis, but it's often paired with pixelitis, is top-down. if you're gonna make a game trailer, this was recent that I saw a game trailer of where you played like a monk with monk-like weapons and weaponry, and it was a beat 'em up, and I saw that and I was like, what, beat 'em up? And they said like, yeah, it's a third-person beat 'em up. So I was expecting something like Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, which is a god-blessed, amazing game, by the way, that I might talk about later. Or Devil May Cry, or Bayonetta, you know, that kind of game. And I was like, wow, I love Devil May Cry. I've never played Bayonetta, because, well, I just don't like the main character. Not because she's a woman, definitely not, but it's just, I don't know, something about it doesn't appeal to me. But Devil May Cry is great. I specifically like Nero from the Devil May Cry 4 series, but I digress. Right, so I was expecting that, and then I saw the trailer and I was like, man, this looks really cool. And the trailer had like great voice acting, and it was visually appealing, and the trailer was with 3D graphics, you know, like realistic. And I was like, wow, that looks great. I really like the design of the main character, and it was a top-down, like Miami Vice kind of game where you die in one shot, but you also kill your enemies in about one shot, you know. And I saw that, and I was so extremely disappointed. I was actually hyping because of that game, which had already come out, like, and it was fine, but I just saw that it was top down, and it was like, no, I hate this kind of game, because again, it's easier, because you don't have to make like a whole camera setting, you don't have to program in the whole camera aspect, you don't have to make sure that the camera doesn't get bugged, no, because it's top down, everything's already there. But at the same time, you're looking at a map, right? It's like you're looking at a road map and you're kind of like following your toy car over it. And would you rather drive a car? Or would you rather take a tiny toy car as an adult, lay down a map and just like imagine the noises yourself and just kind of run along the lines? No, of course not. You want to drive. You want to do it yourself. You want to experience the adventure. You want to see the beautiful landscapes it has to offer. And it's often paired with pixelitis because it's easier. And then you get like the double easy, which is like basically 2 strikes, so 1 more strike and you're out. But it's often also paired with like bad controls, and then it's like, yeah, 3 strikes, you're out, you're a bad game, no excuse, get out, right? Something else about indie games, if there is a good one, there are at least 1,000 shitty remakes. And what I mean with this is that you have Undertale, and then you have a whole shit bunch of pixelated JRPGs or like RPGs. And they can be good, but often not. And Undertale wasn't really that bad in that sense. At least I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a lot of shitty games, but Shovel Knight, for instance, right? So it's a Metroidvania kind of like game. And it worked really well, but then there came a lot of Metroidvania kind of like games that just sucked. They plainly sucked. Because what is the most important thing with a Metroidvania kind of like game? The platforming has to be good, it has to be tight, it has to be responsive, and the combat has to be tight, has to be responsive, has to be good, and the game has to be fair, right? And that's it. That's basically the core thing that you need to get right. And if you can't do that, don't make that kind of game, right? And of course there are a lot of games that are just like test projects or like personal projects from someone who has a dream. And if they do it like that, and they're like, oh, you know, it's either like free or it's low, and they say like, oh, it's my first game, you know, that's fine, honestly. I can cut you some slack if it's like that, but if you make a shitty platformer, and you only give people the first, like, level, the first world, and then make them pay for every single other world, while the game already costs money, you're just a knobhead. That's a fact. Mate, right? It's just that. Furthermore, indie games can be extremely lackluster, which is already what I said. The bugs, shitty controls, you know, the visuals can be bad, and there's really not a lot more that I can say about that. But the last thing I want to say about the bad aspects of indie games is that it often pairs like low budget, often pairs with low effort. So if you put a small amount of money into a game, or into a franchise, or into anything that you do, and you're gonna not use that money to the fullest of its potential, but you kind of like, you know what I mean? You don't put effort into it. Like, if you view it like this, you have a set amount of money, and you have a set amount of effort, and it goes up the same way, right? You know, like, if you give more money, I'll put more effort into it, but if you give me less, I'll put less effort into it. This is a bad way of doing things, right? Because of course you have a low budget, but you gotta work with the things that you have, right? If you only have a pair of scissors, like, break them up and make it into 2 knives. Maybe you can do more with 2 knives. If you only have toilet paper, you can, like, I don't know, like, put it in water and then let it dry out and then use it as, I don't know, mold for something. You can, you know, you gotta work with the things you have. If you have a boat and you don't have, you know, like a paddle, you don't have a paddle, you don't have anything like that, but you do have a plank, which could function the same way. But you're like, no, I don't have a paddle, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna go forward. That's just either being lazy, or you're not trying to solve the problem that's at hand. Because that's a big problem I often find, because your effort should always be as high as you can, and the money can be higher or lower. You know what I mean? It shouldn't scale up with the money, it should be the same. It can be a little less, but the effort should always be higher than the money if the money is not that much, right? If you don't invest that much into it, the money should at least, like, be less of an issue than the you know, the drive to work on it. Right, because if you want to make something, you try to do it right, try to, you know, go there, try to go the distance. I've played and seen a lot of games where you can just clearly see that the game developer didn't want to go the distance. He didn't really want to hire anyone, which I understand, because indie game and money problems, but he also didn't try to fix the problem himself, right? And yeah, again, you gotta work with the things you have, and you gotta show your affection for the game, because sometimes you have a game that's maybe a little lackluster, but you can feel, like, it's something that's difficult to explain, but you can feel how much effort someone put into a game, right? For instance, you know, yeah, Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight is a pretty darn good example of that. Or like Toby Fox's Undertale, right? Also a pretty good example. The thing is, from Yacht Games, Shovel Knight's from Yacht Games, you play that game, and you may like it, or you may not like it, depending whether you like Metroidvanias or not. But it's a good game. You feel like the creator, Yacht Games, really put their heart and soul into it. For instance, something else, Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley, you can feel that the owner, that the creator of the game really put a lot of effort into it. And yes, it's top-down and it's pixelated, so you think that I'd hate it, but I don't, because you can feel the heart and soul, and it's created well, and it works well. And maybe I haven't played it that much, but I've bought it solely because of the fact that it felt good, right? I may not have had a lot of time to play it, but you can feel that people put effort into it. And with a lot of games, you can just feel that they didn't. You know what I mean? Right. So that's the end of the bad, because I don't want to spoil the mood. This is my opinion, by the way, right? Like, I'm not saying this is the way it is. Maybe I use the words is and this is and that's just. I don't mean it like that. I just feel about it that way. To me, it's like that. Right, so let's lift the mood a little. Let's go to the good examples. Right, so good examples of indie games are, like I said, Undertale, The Witcher 3, and Shovel Knight. Those are like the top 3 games that I could think of that are just good. They get the point across. Undertale, I've played it to the end. Beautiful game, beautifully written, well done, funny, nice. right? It grabs you by the throat as well. The Witcher 3, I've never played this. I really want to, but again, I don't have a gaming PC. I don't have a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One. I can't play the game, but it's fine because it looks great. I've seen my brother play it, and I was like, man, a lot of effort went into this. And that just makes me happy. You know what I mean? You can feel how much effort went into it. I don't know how much they had to spend, but it is, God, if they became like millionaires because of that, they bloody deserve it because of how much effort they put in that game. Right? A lot of people speak very highly of it. Not a single person I've known has ever said, nah, The Witcher 3 is shit, it plays like garbage. Not a single person I've met has said that. It looks great. Again, I haven't played it, so I can't say anything about the gameplay. Shovel Knight, we've bought it, we've played it, I loved it. It was too difficult for me. Yeah, I'm gonna straight up say it, I'm gonna own this. It was too difficult for me. I'm not good at platformers and I'm not good at Metroidvanias. That doesn't mean that the money I spent wasn't well spent. And that the game developers didn't earn it because it's a great game. It's too difficult for me personally. But I had a shitload of fun, especially in the first levels. The music was great, everything paired together well. You could see what you were doing. It's just good. It's just good. It made me feel good. And that's all it needs to do. So there are definitely indie games that are good at it. Now, for the bad examples, basically anything else. And I don't mean this like, oh, those 3 games are the only good ones, but what I mean is, you have a good indie game and then you have all the crap around it, right? And all the crap around it are just bad games. I can't say them off the top of my head because they were so immemorable that I didn't even, I didn't even bother to write it down. And I was thinking about this for a good long while, at least 10 minutes. Like, oh, what was that game called? But I can't even remember because I didn't care. It's so bad that I didn't care. And that's just, it really is like you have a gold nugget and you have the slop around it, right? And do you want to really dig through a river of slop to get that one gold nugget? Like, I personally don't. If you want to, good for you. Good job. It's honest work. Someone's got to do it. But I personally don't want to do that. Right, so we're going to get to the next point, and that's the last point. That's my opinion, my view on how to fix this problem. Right, and I have 2 big solutions that can be categorized under one term, and that is all or nothing, right? And I'm gonna explain this, and this is my opinion, and I don't know if this would work or not. I haven't really done a lot of research on it, but I would think like all or nothing, right? So it's either we're gonna kill the AAA companies, by boycotting them and not buying their games anymore, which is intensely difficult because, for instance, Call of Duty franchise has made a big name for itself, so it's never really gonna die out, right? So, but like, if we boycott AAA companies and actually show our aggression through, like, not buying their games anymore or whatever, and everyone theoretically would do that, then we would be left with indie game developers, and we could take the money that we would put in AAA games and put that in funding or in buying indie games, which I think would really help with the technical issues and the quality of the indie games. However, what's also a problem with it is that you could take money and you could accidentally put it in one of the wrong indie game developers, and they would just take it and be like, thanks, bitch, and they would just drive away with their new Chevy. And you would be sitting there like, yeah, well, that's my 60 euros. That's grand. Now I have nothing. But also lost a lot of money. So that's kind of that's the issue with it. That if you are going to go to smaller companies, there are always those companies that are just scams. However, with AAA, if AAA companies or AAA games are basically scams, it's all across the internet. It's all you'll ever see on the subject of gaming, right? So you know when to not buy a game or when to be cautious. And with indie games, that's a bigger issue because it's a wider range, and some games don't get the attention they deserve. Other games get no attention, while people should be warned for like shitty gameplay or anything like that, right? So that's the problem with it. Or we could kill indie. Don't make an opinion just yet. We could kill indie games by fusing certain developers together. What I mean by this is that you have certain indie development teams, and what you could do is you could pair them with other indie development teams to, in essence, create AAA games. Then you would take away the problem of having to spend a lot of money on different goals, and you could spend more money on one gigantic indie team. You would take away the problem of not knowing about the games of tinier indie developers that could very well be scams or just poor games. Right, you take away that problem, but what you also create is that those teams have to work together. Right, they have to work together well, they have to have the same vision, they have to go the same way, and of course, there are a lot of illegal issues because the company is getting bigger and they have to spend more money on more people, but you will also give them more money. But if you don't give them more money, they are just making like losses, and two indie game development teams that on their own got enough money to come by and could create beautiful games now don't get as many followers, maybe, and then completely crumble. So basically you're just fusing two indie games together and you're killing them, two birds with one stone, so to say, but in a negative way. Right? Completely understand that. I get that. It's just kind of an idea to fuse the good indie game developers together, and then if you have this pool of bad indie games, but at least the good indie games would tower above it, right? So you know what to pick. You don't have to dig through the slop, and you know it would be better. And then you have like bigger companies, and maybe they would become even so big that they could like punch the AAA game companies out of the ring, like, or at least give them a wake up call, like, hey, we thrive and get more money than you because we care about our community. And then, I don't know, Blizzard or EA or Ubisoft would be like, oh shit, would that actually be the way to go? Or Bethesda. And it's like, yes. You know, but either way, we have to wake up the AAA companies, and we have to give more money to indie game developers if we are able to. Because me personally, I have a lot of I have a couple of financial issues. I don't have a lot of money to spare. We don't really buy new games because we need to do groceries, right? We need to be able to go outside in clothing. Also because of the aforementioned snow, right? You can't go outside naked because, first of all, it's against the law. But that's a problem to a lesser degree than it would be cold, and your nuts would freeze off, right? So that's just, and that's not nice, right? So I personally don't have the money to support a lot of indie games, and I do have to say, it would be nice to fund good indie game developers, but be cautious, because before you know it, your money could end up in a hole or even worse, and then there's nothing you can do about it. Money that you've thrown away is thrown away, and you're not getting that back. Especially not if they're scammers, right? It's just gonna be hard. It's gonna be difficult, right? So be cautious about what you do. I'm gonna wrap it up with this, by the way. This is the ending segment. Be careful with what you do. So proceed, do everything with caution, but also think about what you're putting money into. Because maybe you want to play Call of Duty, but maybe you can play Call of Duty made by an indie game developer that can do it better than the creator of Call of Duty. I don't know who it is. I never really play Call of Duty, but Call of Duty is one of those games that is so popular that you can just say the name, and even the grandparents who have never seen like a gaming system are like, oh, Call of Duty, I've heard about that on the news. Isn't that the game that hypnotizes little children to do those school shootings? No, Grandpa, that's another problem that I'm not gonna get into because I don't want to get I don't want to get murdered in my sleep by some angry person who disagrees with me, so I'm not gonna go there. Right, so I want to say, be careful. Indie game developers aren't all bad, but most of them are, in my opinion. But there are definitely good ones out there that I think don't get nearly as much praise as they deserve. And that's gonna about wrap up this podcast. So I would say thank you for listening. Have a great day. And I'll see you in the next one.